I've been doing this for 10 years. Ten years ago today, I uploaded a video called Cynic Clinic Reviews Fully Coolly. It was a video that came about because of two kind of frustrations that I had. The first one was that I didn't have an outlet to talk about this new hobby that I had. I got into anime around about 2010, 2011, the last year of high school, first year of university. And I really only had one friend at that time that I could talk to about anime and manga. But the Venn diagram of our tastes wasn't exactly overlapping that much. And so there were a lot of works that I just couldn't really talk about in a satisfying way. Because I didn't really have anything else, I looked to blogs and to forums and to YouTube videos and reviews as a way to try to scratch that itch. Now, Anime YouTube and I have never really gelled, but I think I can safely say that it is better, asterisk, than it used to be. You know, this was the Wild West of YouTube. This was when Channel Awesome reigned supreme, you know? And that sort of style of summarizing it, but just really making snarky comments and like being dismissive of the production and not really having any knowledge on the background of why it was made, and then maybe doing a little bit of a review at the end. That style was rampant. And even if it wasn't that, it was very much in this sort of Amazon product review style, you know, where it's like, oh, it's 5 out of 10 for the story, and it's 6 out of 10 for the characters, and it's 11 out of 10 for the animation, but that's different from the music, which is, you know, it's broken down into its components rather than how it flows together as a piece of art, you know? When I'd finally watched Furikuri in around about the end of 2012, I was dissatisfied because I felt I had been lied to, or at least the truth had been stretched. Because the take I had been fed at that time by all these videos, by everything, was that Furikuri was this incredibly incomprehensible mess of a show that was one big MTV music video, that it was nothing but zaniness, nothing but the laws of physics being defied. You didn't get to breathe for a second. It was nothing but randomness and, you know, what the fuck Japanness. And even some of the more level-headed people at the time would make claims like it has no plot, or you had to watch it 147 times to understand what's going on. When I watched it, I found that either none of those were true. It has a plot. You don't need to watch it 147 times. It's about growing up. You can tell it's about growing up from the beginning, like, come on. And the rest was stretched. Like, of course it's zany. Of course there are parts that break the laws of physics. Of course there are parts that like an MTV music video and sexualization and everything like that. But for every scene like that, there is a quiet, calm scene of Naota contemplating the ennui of his life and being sad, and it's without dialogue. And it's a very evenly paced show. If you want to know what I actually think about it now, you can watch this video, because that original Furikuri video was gone. You're not seeing it. Nobody's ever seeing it. Not even God's gonna see that fucking shit. And no matter what, I couldn't get rid of that spark that I just felt like, no, people are wrong. People are wrong. And maybe it's presumptuous of me to have that, people are wrong, you know, that kind of feeling, but I was 19. I couldn't get rid of it, and I was convicted in my feelings towards it. And so I thought, fuck it. I'm doing a media studies degree. I've done some freelance video editing work before. I've got a key for a copy of Final Cut Pro 7 that I stole from my high school film teacher. Why don't I make a video? And thus, I uploaded 3 months after I had that idea, which was a spelling of things to come for the future of my channel. And on February 8th, 2013, I uploaded Cynic Clinic Reviews Fully Coolly. I can't watch that video now. It's too cringe. I just can't do it. It's everything that I felt that I was rallying against at the time, I was just as guilty of. I also didn't know about the background of Furikuri. I didn't know the background about Japan. There was so many things I didn't know about anime or whatever. But that spark was what made me make this channel. Or was it? And that's where I lead into what I want to do in this video. In this video, I sort of want to look back on the channel as a whole, my feelings towards it, how my tastes in anime have changed, how my tastes and my approach to making videos have changed. And I want to start all of this and my approach to it by asking you a question. What do you think the Cynic Clinic means? And I don't mean in a sentimental value here. I'm going to get into that later, like what it means to me, what it means to you. What do you think the words the Cynic Clinic actually mean? Because that answer will change depending on which Jaden you ask. That's my real name, by the way, just in case you didn't know. My legal name is not Cynic Clinic, but my middle name is The. The 19-year-old Jaden who started this channel, he probably would tell you that there were 2 reasons why it's named The Cynic Clinic. The first is the alliteration. I thought it rolled off the tongue, the way it rhymed worked, and I thought it was easy to remember. I just thought it sounded nice. The other reason was that 19-year-old Jaden had this wrong conception that being cynical meant you were viewed as cool and smart and funny and sexy. Somewhere along the line, I grew out of that. I no longer believed that being cynical is cool. In fact, I would even go too far to say that 29-year-old Jaden hates cynicism, or at least pointless cynicism. But I don't hate my channel name the way I maybe should. And I think it's because I've been able to reimagine it in a certain way. And the way I try to think of the Cynic Clinic now and what the Cynic Clinic means is like this. You go to a skin cancer clinic to be cured of skin cancer, right? So what do you go to a Cynic Clinic for than to be cured of cynicism? I know it's a stretch, I know it's a little bit, a bit goofy and a bit, cheesy or whatnot, but I think that is pretty applicable to what I do on this channel. Obviously, I can't control the way that people view my channel. I think there will be a lot of people who just see the Cynic Clinic and will see my original intentions or compare me to the vast amount of other channels, the vast amount of other accounts that also put cynical or cynic or cynicism in the title. But I'm not going to change the name, one, because that's the name I have and that's the identity of the channel. But I think the other one too is that reimagining is very important to bring up, because I think my entire channel over these 10 years has been about reimagining itself. Starting with that very first video on Furikuri, because I'm kind of actually lying to you right now. This isn't the 10-year anniversary of the Cynic Clinic, this is the 10-year anniversary of the Furikuri video, and thus me talking about anime on the Cynic Clinic. The Cynic Clinic was actually created in 2012, 11 years ago, and this channel was originally going to be a gaming channel. The first videos that I ever uploaded to this channel were 3 videos on Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, of all things. I think at the time my logic might have even been, okay, well I can talk about games and anime at the same time, because, I can alternate between the two, but obviously I never ended up talking about games ever again. And this reimagining is a pretty constant process, While I'm very similar to the person I was 10 years ago, in other ways I'm very different to the person I was 10 years ago. If you were to compare, say, the Azumanga Daioh review, which is the earliest publicly available video still on this channel, to my last video on Bocce the Rock, apart from the nasal drone of my voice and the accent, you might not even think they were from the same person, because the style, tone, approach, the visuals, production, everything is just such a harsh jump between them. But conversely, if you were to look at, say, the Tsuyu-chan no Tsugakuro video and the video that came after it, the People Don't Know How to Talk About Animation video, even though that features my switch from the sketch style of old to the the current style, which features me recording myself, that jump is not so harsh because, well, they were made so close together. My tone and delivery is very similar. I use a lot of the same effects and plugins, and that video even has some sketches in it that People Don't Know How to Talk About Animation video. It's not that much of a jump, even though that is where I see the switch happen. Even though my videos have changed dramatically over the years, over the course of 10 years, it's kind of inevitable that that would have happened. And I think even despite that, I've managed to keep a relatively consistent voice. I've always had 2 core principles behind this channel. I might not have been able to put them into words or even been consciously aware of them, but I think even from the beginning, from the get-go, from that Furikuri video, that I have lived by these in some form or another. And they are: 1, I have to genuinely think what I'm saying is interesting and valuable towards the discourse of the work in a broader context. And 2, the visuals have to be interesting and engaging. So let's start with the ideas. I have to think that it's interesting. This has always been there in one form or another. I remember after the Ava video, which is the video I made after the Furikuri video, which is also terrible, you'll never see it again, it fucking sucks. If you're thinking of starting a YouTube channel about anime, please don't choose Evangelion as your first video. Please, it's a mistake. I've done it. Don't do it. But after that Ava video, I sat down and I wrote up a document trying to plan out how I was getting a bit serious about this. I tried to write down what I would talk about. And I think I came up with a list of about 25 anime or manga that I wanted to talk about. It was a mix of things that I really liked, things that I didn't like, because remember, Vitriol was very popular back then. I mean, it still is, but it was things that I thought were really popular and would get some easy views, and then some things I thought that were obscure and would be nice to shine a light. And I think of that document of the 25 works, I've ended up talking about 2 of them over the course of 10 years, because I would sit down to write some of them and just realize I don't have anything interesting to say. Like, I remember very vividly sitting down and trying to force myself to make a video about Cowboy Bebop, and just nothing was coming. nothing was coming because I thought that what I was saying had already been said. And of course, what is interesting to say varies, and even myself varies. I look at some of my old videos and think now that what I'm saying isn't interesting in those videos. But the important thing is at the time, I need to genuinely believe. At the time of uploading, I need to have genuinely believed that this is valuable, even if it changes in the future, because otherwise, why make it? The second with the visuals, like the Cynic Clinic Classic, which is what I'm going to call it style, which is the, the sketches on the artboard and everything like that. One, I saw what my competition was like, and, it was like crusty 240p, letterboxed, hard subbed, maybe 58 kilobits a second in the audio, aliased, with like green lines on the side from like the DVD transfer, like fucking up when they copied it across. It's not really edited to their voice, which is on a crappy $5 microphone. Just wasn't interesting in the slightest, and I wanted them to be better than that. At the time, I also had aspirations of learning how to draw and becoming an animator, so I thought, well, what if I do some sketches? I was influenced by, it's embarrassing to admit, but I was influenced by Zero Punctuation, of all things. Not only was he concise with his points, he used the limited animation of the Microsoft Paint things very well. It got the message across in what he was saying. You could adapt it for a lot of things. I thought, why don't I try that with sketches? Not only that, I thought it would be a good way to get around copyright, because even then, from the beginning, I've known that copyright isn't something to be trifled with, and just putting up a Section 107 thing, a title card at the start of the video, isn't going to protect you if you actually get sued or a cease and desist. So both of those ideas, of interesting ideas and interesting visuals, are still with me today, but they've been refined and reimagined over the years to better play to what I feel are my strengths. So for example, with writing, I've really moved away from the Amazon review structure, talking about each of the components, because I realized somewhere along the way that that too was playing into that original thing of needing something interesting to say. I used to hate writing, and I think the reason was that I would write the part I would find interesting. Let's say there was a particular theme that I really wanted to explore, or the way the animation worked to uphold this scene was really fascinating. But then I would try to write the rest of it, I just couldn't come up for anything with the music. How is the music interesting here? I don't know. It sounds good. It works. It's fine. Or the characters. Yeah, the characters are all good. Everyone's already said about them. And that would be sort of choke point. I think it started to click for me with the Azumanga Daioh format video. Because I'd already done a review of Azumanga Daioh, and this was an aspect I neglected in the review, or I wasn't even really aware of when I made the review, and it was something I became much more interested in, the idea of how the format played into the themes, that I was free to just talk about that. And that was liberating. I wrote that video in seconds compared to how I used to write. And so I think ever since then, I've just decided to forego all the parts that I don't have anything interesting to say about, and just write about the parts I think are interesting. And I think I'm at the point now where most of my videos is one thing. I have one thesis idea that I want to talk about, and that's all I write about. And I think it was even more drastic with the visuals. I've almost completely abandoned the original style, but it didn't happen like that. Again, that was a gradual process. A few things happened there that I wanted to talk about. I think the first one was that when I got better at drawing. I used to put this ugly, horrendous border around everything. I think it was another way to get around copyright for when I did use the screenshots or clips from the show. And I thought maybe that would help tie it in with the rest being sketchy, because I wanted it to look uniform and consistent, but it just looked atrocious. And little by little, it was things like I made the border look a little nicer by redrawing it as a computer monitor at least. But as I got better at drawing, I also became pickier. And I eventually decided that it was better to do quality over quantity. So rather than having up to 100 drawings per video, or little sketches of balloon men or whatever, that I would maybe do a dozen, and I would edit them and add more animation and use more clips or use more manga panels and everything like that, and incorporate it like that, just make them a little nicer. And then it sort of became this hybrid approach where it was sketches, but also there was a lot of footage. I eventually stopped using the border and just used the footage and did some more interesting things, using After Effects and Parallax. And then eventually I decided to record myself and use that as a background and just rely on clips and After Effects and all these different things, because I came to terms with something, which was that I'm a better editor than I am a drawer. And that's not to dissuade my drawing abilities. I'm quite content with my current drawing abilities. But I am and always will be an editor first and foremost, so why not lean to that strength? Both of these changes to the way I approach writing and editing happened due to self-limitations, to frustrations. I was kind of locking myself into a little box. I think it was because I had this idea that I was known as the sketching guy, the guy who drew everything for his videos in the anime reviewer space. And I didn't want to break from that. I wanted to stay on branding. I didn't want to let people down who liked that style. but it was hindering production, you know? Like I would have moments where I had holes to fill, whether it was in writing or in editing. The number of times I've had like a timeline that's almost ready to upload, but there's just like 2 or 3 gaps where I have had no footage, nothing to put under there. I think this is for the better because my output now is still not amazing, but it's much better than it used to be. I think I used to put out like 2 or 3 videos a year. Now I can manage one every month or so, which is an improvement to say the least. Some of that comes down to as well cheating. And I'm a firm believer in cheating when it comes to editing, you know? Not in terms of being lazy, but in terms of if you've got it, use it, you know? And if you've got it, reuse it, importantly, you know? Now I've done this enough that I have a repertoire of effects, presets, things that I've made, things I can reuse over the years. And again, I play to my strengths, you know? Even recording this video, I'm playing to my strengths right now. Like, let me turn off the color grading for a second. Look how phosphorescently shiny my skin is because I'm an oily bastard. It's Australian summer. I've got these 2 fucking heavy lights on my face. I don't have any makeup to put on it to make me look matte. I look atrocious, but I do this with black and white. It makes it look cool and like I'm doing it for like the reflective mood or whatever. It's like, no, it's to hide the shine, baby. And you want to know really how much I cheat? You want to know really how much I cheat? This table? It's not fucking there. That's from a previous take because I did this before and I had set it up with this nice table and that was much of a hassle to redo again. So I was like, I looked at the footage and like, I can just cut it out and put it in front of me. I don't know because you know what? I'm best at editing. I'm not the best at recording. I'm not a camera operator. I can do it, but I'm not the best at it. Lean to my strengths. Cheat. Cynic Clinic. 2023. So that's how production has changed. But I think another thing too is just my understanding of anime has changed. 10 years is a long time, and as I've delved more into this hobby, I have discovered more about it. Back when I started, I did what everybody did, which was nothing. Especially in terms of research in citing sources. It was just my opinion and it was correct to put it out there because it was my opinion and not based on anything. In particular, what I did was I viewed everything with a very Western lens. I had an understanding of Western story structure, in particular, like Hollywood Western story structure because I had done a Western media studies degree. I knew about the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell, and that was fed to me, and I tried to apply anime, something from a completely foreign culture with its own histories and tropes and storytelling conventions. Square peg in a round hole, that's what it was. There is value in that, of course, but there is much more value in understanding the original environment in which it was created. Over time, citing sources started to become more important to me. First, it started with, well, if I mentioned something that the creator had said, rather than just a rumor I had heard on a forum somewhere, I need to cite the actual interview that it was said so that it can be backed up that they did actually say that. And then it sort of became, well, if I'm talking about media theory, I should cite some of those media theory ideas, like who came up with them, because it could just be Joe Blow. And so it's important to cite your sources. That became very important to me. I don't always do it correctly, and I think I went through a phase where I did like the kind of undergrad thing where I padded out my bibliography. I thought if you had more sources, the better. Now I think, again, it's quality over quantity. If you're saying something and it needs to be backed up with a source, you should source it. When I look at my repertoire now, 10 years later, of all the videos I point out, I can't say I like each one of them now. You know, like some, especially the older you go back, the more I cringe, right? And even some ones I made only 2 or 3 years ago, I'm like, oh, this could need work. I wasn't exactly on the money. But I do genuinely think that each video gets better as I go along, and I'm proud of what I've been able to make. But now I think it's time to discuss the elephant in the room, which is the size of the channel. As of recording this video, I have just under 5,000 subscribers. Now, it's not that I don't think that's an achievement, and it's not that I'm not incredibly grateful for it. I am. Sometimes I think about it, and that's a huge number, right? Nearly 5,000 people have liked me enough to follow my ideas in the future. That's kind of like crazy, right? And every time I get comments, every time I interact with people, like I feel incredibly humbled by what people say about me and thankful and grateful. And I really am. I really think that I'm not good at expressing it into words like that don't just come across as platitudes, but I'm so appreciative of this whole thing, what it is right now. But there is a comment that I get a lot, and I've always gotten it from the very beginning. I've been getting it for 10 years, and when you get this comment for 10 years, it starts to eat away at you, despite the fact that it comes from a good place. And that comment is something that reads something along the lines of, wow, this channel is so good, I can't believe you haven't blown up yet. You deserve so many more subs, or why don't you have more views, or why aren't you huge yet? This channel needs to blow up. And every time I get this comment, I am still grateful for it. I'm still appreciative. This person is saying something incredibly nice about me. They think I deserve success. That's great. But getting it for 10 years makes me start to think, well, why haven't I blown up? Why don't I have the success? I started around about the same time as the Gigox, the Arcadas, maybe a little later, only a couple of years, but in the grand scheme of things, compared to people who are bigger than I am, who only started a couple of years ago, why am I still around about this tier? I try not to let it get me down. I try not to think about it too much. One, because I think it plays into sort of grind set culture that I absolutely fucking despise, the numbers game or whatever. But there is a pressure about it that is not entirely anybody's individual fault, but it's just kind of something that comes with the territory of doing YouTube or doing any sort of thing on the internet where you have a social presence. The first is all to do with me, and I think the biggest reason why is just my output is and never has been enough. Like I said before, in the old days, I managed, maybe if I was lucky, 4 videos in a year. Now it's better as the production cycle gets easier and easier, but I can still only manage at best once a month. That wasn't enough to get really big in YouTube 10 years ago. It's certainly not enough to get really big in YouTube now, Another thing is I've never been able to be topical. The recent video on Bocce the Rock is the closest I've ever been to being topical. Other than that, I've never been able to be topical. Not because I don't watch seasonals or I don't like topical things, but by the time I've formed an interesting opinion about something, or something I think is an interesting opinion to make for an interesting video, it's no longer topical. Or by the time I've finished editing it, it's no longer topical. I've also never been able to hit key dates. I'm really trying to make sure this video gets out on the 8th of February because it's such a big date, but the Bocce the Rock video, I wanted to get that finished before the end of the year. I wanted it out in 2022, but I just couldn't do it. I'm glad I delayed it, but, it doesn't make it easier in terms of success, I don't game the system enough, I've been trying a little more recently, but I think I'm going to start giving up in terms of trying to make algorithm-friendly thumbnails and titles and everything like that. I want my thumbnails to look good. I know it's like a silly thing, but I like the way my thumbnails look. I don't really have any intention of changing them. And finally, I've just never been able to understand the YouTube algorithm. It's fickle, it's wanton. I don't really get it. I used to brush it off. I used to just brush it off completely with, it's my hobby, and it's my hobby. Doesn't matter. I'm doing it for fun. There's nothing like that. I still kind of have that mentality, but it's not exactly my hobby now anymore. I mean, it is, but I do make money off it. It's not much, I do monetize the videos now. I get like $20 a year from YouTube, but that's more than $0 a year from YouTube. I also have a Patreon where I take some of the fans and the very generous people who are very kind enough to support me monetarily as well as through likes and subscribes and comments and everything like that. And now that I'm actually taking people's money, I don't think I can have such a blasé attitude about it, this brushing off attitude about it, because I have more of an obligation now. Like I said, I've liked every single video that I've uploaded at the time of uploading it at the very least. And the reaction I've gotten to most of my videos has always been good. I enjoy reading the comments, everything like that. But YouTube makes you care about the numbers game, whether you want to or not. When you upload a new video, if it does well, little confetti explosions happen on the studio page. The analytics tabs are incredibly detailed and complex and let you go into the nitty-gritty of okay, people are stopping watching it about here, they're doing here, this topic is doing well, go into this topic, your view rate drops off here, there's a spike here, these are the terms you can use. While theoretically these are tools to help people to expand the channel, I think what it actually does is it just gives you anxiety about the future. Bocce the Rock video did very well. Given about a year, I think it might end up being my most viewed video. It might overtake the lip sync video. But if you look at the analytics, it was like a flash in the pan and now it's earning less views than the usual high performers on my channel. The Dragon Ball videos, the Trigun video, the lip sync video, the people don't know how to talk about animation video. I'm kind of glad I'm doing this 10-year anniversary video now because I know that this video is not going to get as many views as the Bocce video by default. So I'm not going to feel as bad when the numbers tab says that it's not doing nearly as well as the previous video. No creator should have that feeling when they're uploading something that they put effort into. And even with the Bocce video, even though it was getting a pretty high level of success, I didn't feel very good about it. You know, it was like a weird empty feeling as I watched the numbers climb. Around about this time last year, I was feeling quite down because my channel initially experienced the highest growth it had had after that lip sync video and the animation video. I did the Kisho Tenketsu video. I felt I was on an upward trajectory. I was finally going to get to like, you know, a higher place. And I think even before that year, I was still, it took me ages to get to $1,000, you know, it took me a long time. And then it stalled and I don't know why. And I was feeling I'd done all these things, done all these reimagined the channel so many times. I'd done all this stuff. And around about this time last year, I felt just like quitting, stopping making videos. Why am I doing it? You know, it becomes harder to produce. I work, you know, I have other jobs, other commitments, social commitments, other hobbies that I want to explore. And sometimes I wonder, does the Cynic Clinic take all my creative juices, you know, because I once had aspirations of, you know, being a filmmaker and an animator. I haven't necessarily given up or anything, but I don't practice those anymore. And is it because all of those skills and talents and hobbies go into this channel? And that's what I was feeling about this time last year. Because I felt like my channel wasn't a success. But that depends on how you measure success. And don't worry, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. This is just like the dramatic lull of the video. Recently, I watched this clip from Germa, of all people. But he talked about like being ready for things and moving on with your life and success. And if you haven't done this at this age, you know, and that sort of grind set mentality, right? And how he's just so much against it. And it was just really comforting and relaxing. And I know it's funny to say that a Germa clip of all things helped me kind of get out of a funk, talking about finding your place in the world, carving out success for yourself. And the most important bit that he said, I think, was, it doesn't have to be extravagant. Successful YouTube channels, only ones that have millions of subscribers and fans and all of everything that comes with that. I mean, maybe if you're talking about monetary success, but it brings its own problems. When I sit down and think about it, I don't want 1 million subscribers. I don't think I've ever wanted 1 million subscribers. I'm not saying I don't want more subscribers, but when I think about the size of my channel now after 10 years, there are a lot of positive ways to look at it. The first one is my growth is sustainable. You know, if you look at my number of subscribers over the years, it has been very, very consistent. You know, there have been periods where I get a boost either from somebody shouting me out, or a video does relatively well, like the bocce video or the lip sync video. But it is generally pretty consistent. You know, it's growing at a very steady rate. I'm not in danger of not getting any more subscribers, at least while I continue to make videos. Also, in regards to that, my views to subscriber ratio is pretty good. Most of my videos tend to get around about the range of the number of subscribers I had at the time or that I have now. And when, of course, some videos do worse than others, and some do better than others, but you consider a lot of channels that were big, say, even only 3 or 4 years ago, like old school big YouTube, you know? And they'll have millions of subscribers, but now they can barely pull in a couple, like 10K views, you know? And I don't want that. Nobody wants that. I feel so bad when I see that. Another thing is that the size of the channel means that I think the community is more tight-knit, you know? Like the people who are my patrons, who are in my Patreon Discord, you know, I've gotten to know a lot of them, some of them very well. The topics I cover can be more niche. If I decided tomorrow to make an hour-long video about Hanukkah, I can do it. I'm not one-ton to the ebb and flow of what's trending and what's topical as some other channels are because, you know, I don't need to be chasing that constant height of hitting those same numbers, of constantly topping the video that came before it. And ultimately, I can just go at my own pace. I can continue my day job. I can do the channel when I feel like it, when the motivation comes, you know, when the ideas flow. And finally, those reimaginings of the channels, those different phases, you know, Cynic Clinic Classics, Cynic Clinic Reloaded, Cynic Clinic Revolutions. Those can happen because, well, I can change the channel how I want, you know, without being worried I'm gonna lose fucking 50,000 subscribers, you know? These videos are a convergence of 3 of my biggest hobbies: anime, video editing, and drawing. I don't really get that much time or opportunities anymore to do each of those 3 things individually in my spare time to the extent that I might want. So combining them is a great way to also get rid of the creative energy that I was talking about, you know? I enjoy making the process. I enjoy the process of making the video. Grammar. There have even been times in my life where the channel was the only consistent, the only thing getting me through the day, where I would go to work and I would work a 10-hour shift and it would be hard and miserable, and the only thing keeping me going was the thought that when I get home, I can get an extra hour or two editing on that video, just chipping away at it so I can finally get it out and released. Each time that I felt the channel was nearing its end marked the beginning of one of those shifts, one of those reimaginings. Whether it was lessening the number of drawings or embracing more of the editing side of things, starting to record myself, or even doing things like, making the AMVs and MADs, like the Haruhi tribute or the Azumanga Daioh tribute, or even little animations like that Korone thing that I did, Now, experimenting with the channel doesn't and hasn't always worked, I tried that with the Ultraviolet video, thinking I was going to lean back into doing more film content, but yeah, that's probably not going to happen. But while it may not have been successful, it's always been rewarding. And so who knows, maybe the future of the channel will look a little different. Maybe I'll lean more into doing more animations, or maybe I'll do more comparisons of something. Hell, maybe I'll make some more Halo videos again. Who knows? Who knows what the future will hold? I've talked about myself a lot in this video, and I think that's understandable to a degree. It's obviously 10 years, something that's really important to me. But this video and this channel and everything wouldn't be possible without all the people who've supported it, which is you, anybody who's watching it. Wrapping this all up, I just wanted to give a couple of shout outs to some of the key people who have really helped me over the years and acknowledge what they've done for me and everything like that. The first one is Lazarus James. This is the friend I mentioned way back in the beginning of the video. They're the person my original friend who I could talk to about anime and manga. They did a lot more than that. They used to proofread my scripts, and I think up until about 2 or 3 years ago, they proofread all of them, in terms of content, in terms of grammar and style, writing, everything like that. Always been a big help, always been supportive of the channel. Another person is Concept Candid. She's always supported me. She helped bring me into a broader community. When I first started, I felt very isolated, even though it was supposed to be an outlet for talking about stuff. I didn't really interact on the way that maybe I wanted to, and she was always supportive of my channel, helped me bring into other streams and the chats, and eventually into Discords and all these various things. Always been supportive, always willing to shout out and express ideas, and because of her, I've met so many people now who I consider close friends, so thank you. Joseph from Pause and Select, the man, the myth, the man. Always been a big inspiration, both in terms of writing, in terms of opening my eyes and broadening my understanding of anime by introducing me to several books and resources on the topics. Because of them, I found out about Thomas Lamar and the Anime Machine and Motoko Tanaka, Galbraith. It's basically because of Joseph from Pause and Select. I don't know why I'm saying his full name, but it's basically because of Joe that I really have any broader understanding in the terms of the literature about anime at all. So thank you for that. Varied and interesting and amazing visuals, great language usage, just great guy all around, and the only person who fully understands my countless Simpsons references being dropped in Discord calls. So my man, thank you. Another one is to Stevem. Even though you don't call me back, you've always helped out with the videos. You've always been willing to shout me out. I've gotten a lot of view bumps because of you and being just so willing to share videos on your platform. He's one of the most passionate people about just everything. I don't know, so good. Always helped me with marketing, with thumbnails and with titles, and helping me try to, better that and be consistent. Always good to bounce ideas off and be a good soundboard. So my man Stevem. Shaybs. No one else can do what Shaybs does, AniTube Digest, someone who genuinely cares about the state of anime YouTube. It's because of Shaybs, I think, is one of the few reasons I stay up to date with anime YouTube. I don't even know what's going on, finding out things through him. Also an inspiration, AMVs, really well edited, very, very good use of music. And just an overall incredibly nice guy who's, the passion for not only anime, but people who talk about anime is very admirable. Your boy Gil from GilLiesHere, from the Cynic Clinic, from GilLiesHere, from Pause and Select, from GilLiesHere. Just a good friend. Thanks for everything, for being a soundboard, for giving your opinions and advice when I show you working builds of something, for helping me create things, supplying, graphics for when I've asked them. And for, just being a good person. I want to stop recording this video now. So I'm going to leave you with the wise words.